Good morning, and my name is Ibrahim Sani, continuing on with Niaga Awani, taking over from my colleague Nina Rosman. There's a lot that needs to be unpacked this morning. We start off with some of the developments surrounding the economic challenges of domestic trade and cost of living. That's a big concern. Joining us this morning live is Datuk David Gurupatham, the co-founder of Industries Unite. David, despite the current economic challenges, the Ministry of Domestic Trade and Cost of Living has set a target for the country's franchise industry to grow between 20% and 30% this year. This is driven by encouraging prospects for the sector. Do you feel that the outlook is going to be good for this sector moving forward for this year, Dr. David?
Personally, I believe it will be challenging. We need to be innovative and creative. If you look at where we've been in terms of the demand overseas, it's because of the lockdown in China and, of course, the war in Ukraine. Demand across all sectors have waned. So it will be challenging, but, as I said, in adversity, there's always a possibility.
Because of this, the Ministry Secretary General, Datuk Azman Yusuf, has also said that franchise business promotion programs will continue on, not just domestically but abroad as well, and will continue to be intensified to support the franchise players and entrepreneurs. Do you see some support going to be seen in a tangible way? Do you feel that, say, for instance, not just monetary support, but technical support is also going to be given for those entrepreneurs that want to explore in this space?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, I don't think just financial support is going to help. I mean, the government has, to be fair, been supporting the franchise industry for years. I think you need to have a wholesale restructuring of the process. One of the first challenges before you start going on franchise is intellectual property. Now, not enough, although we have the support for intellectual property, in terms of knowledge, if you look at a lot of the SMEs and entrepreneurs, their knowledge of intellectual property and protecting intellectual property, making the registrations and so on and so forth. This is sadly lacking in Malaysia compared to a lot of other countries with big franchises. The first thing they do is they understand something called intellectual property. The other, of course, is managing and running a business overseas. To be able to manage and run a franchise overseas, you also need people with the appropriate skill set. So there's a lot more that needs to be done and more support that needs to go into this process. For example, right down to education, entrepreneurship. Now, the third point that we also haven't put enough effort in terms of franchising is something called branding. Today, for example, if you look at Asia, you see personal branding, you see corporate branding. But how many brands can you actually come out and say, hey, these are international brands? So a lot of support needs to go into branding as well and other things. It's not just throwing some money and saying, hey, you know what, go out and get a franchise.
The leveraging of trade agreements is expected to strengthen manufacturing. This is coming in from Liu Chintong, the Deputy Minister of MINTI. And of course, we're looking at Malaysia possibly taking advantage of these trade agreements being signed with other countries. Do you feel that trade agreements can help on top of, say, for instance, branding and, of course, not just financial support?
Well, certainly trade agreements certainly will help. But if you look at even where we are currently in terms of trade agreements, we have 14 trade agreements, right? 7 bilateral and 7 regional, ASEAN Plus, and so on and so forth. And then 7 directly with certain countries. Of course, we're negotiating another 3. But if you look at all the countries that we're talking to, I mean, you're talking about New Zealand, Chile, Japan, and all that. Yet our main trading partner is still China, Singapore, Hong Kong, so we haven't really explored or expanded on existing trade agreements. For example, Chile, is a good market, or New Zealand, Pakistan, Australia, Turkey. Now these are very good markets to try and go into or expand on the already existing bilateral trade agreements, but we're still very China-centric because it's easy. So I think what we need to do is we need to expand first on the other existing bilateral trade agreements, and I think now with the opportunity with the slowdown in China, with problems with supply chains around the world, and I think Malaysia can now play another role in ASEAN. As I said, we have another 7 ASEAN plus regional rather to play a pivotal role in leading this ASEAN group as an alternative to China. I mean, if you look at ASEAN on its own, across the board, we do have the capability of actually working together and pushing these type of production or increasing production out of these countries, right?
Of course, harkening back to what MITI has announced, or the Deputy Minister Liu Chintong has announced, the most notable idea right now is looking at a strong and robust manufacturing sector, particularly for the SMEs, the small and medium enterprises, looking at the ability to sustain good economy, good employment for the country. There's also that whole element of how technology can be leveraged on. Liu Chintong did argue that the ability for us to expand, or SMEs expansion, must be complemented with better technology, with quality workforce. This does include the whole idea of sustained training, not just for the workers inside the SMEs, but generally speaking, the sector outright. So therefore, we're looking at the entire ecosystem to be upgraded, all in a short period of time, largely because we don't have much time left. 2023 is supposed to be the recovery year, but things are increasing, from input costs to workforce costs to training costs, and of course regulatory costs. There's so many things that are going to be increased, not to mention all the other expectations from the market. Because of all these external and macro reasoning coming into the frame, do you feel optimistic, David, that this year is going to be a good year, not just for the SMEs, but generally speaking for Malaysia's economy outright? Do you feel that this is the year for recovery, full recovery, following the pandemic?
Actually, I do. I do believe that, and I do believe that seeing how well we bounced back from the COVID pandemic. I mean, if you look at the across the board, the 120 trade associations that we have now, they're all quite reasonably optimistic, and one of the main reasons for that really is the what's coming out of the government at the moment. What's coming out from the government on the moment is some form of commitment to fight corruption, some kind of commitment to reduce the cost of doing business, some kind of commitment to reducing bureaucracy. So these are all very basic and simple things that make business happy, really. So that is a kind of optimism that we're looking at. The second part of it is also, yes, we are also coming out of that labor shortage. Somehow, slowly we find the workers trickling in and so on and so forth. The biggest challenge, of course, as you've quite rightly pointed out, is inflation, the cost of living. And that has actually, if you look at how we've kind of dropped in terms of our manufacturing output, because one, of external demand, and two is the cost of raw materials, and three is of course the supply chain. So, but this is a worldwide issue. Now, what we need to do is we need to sit down with the trade associations. If you ask me, if you look at the role that the trade associations play, in getting the country out of COVID, the amount of feedback that was given to various ministries and things like that, we need to sit down with these trade associations, these SME associations, and we need to sit down and come up with a comprehensive plan, because they know the members, they can get information out. One of the problems we found during COVID was whatever the government wanted to do didn't get translated down to the ground, and you have to get whatever policy translated, whatever benefits you have translated down to the ground. And the best place to do that is to work with these trade associations. Now, when you and that's the first step. And if you ask them, they will tell you, look, throwing money or incentives isn't going to help. You need to restructure the whole thing. For example, you look at what we have combined, 120 trade associations. You ask them what the first problem is, they'll tell you bureaucracy. We need permits, we need licenses, we need this. We go to the government, it takes months. We've got to fix these simple problems first. And then, we need to go down and we need to start pushing education. We need to start pushing entrepreneurship, business in schools. They need to learn about keeping books. They need to learn about taxation, which is sadly lacking in school, and then they come out and then they try to be entrepreneurs. They try to have SMEs and then they go through a whole struggle. It's you're right. It's multifaceted. Whether we can do it by 2023, I doubt it. But a good way to start is to start engagement, is to start a think tank, is to have a policy, is to have a direction. We look at neighboring countries, they have very clear directions where they want to go. They understand how much they need to put into it. They understand how they need to ease certain restrictions just to get things moving. We got to do that.
Okay, one other item that I want to explore to you is the comments coming in from the Vice Chairman of the Malaysian Franchise Association, Chukri Saleh. He said as of last December, a total of over 1,100 franchises or brands have been registered with the ministry, and that has been making a big figure, taking into account our economic headwinds right now. The Malaysian Franchise Association has always been a supporter of the government from the past to the present. He argues that promoting franchise industries is important and it's being done through roadshows, exhibitions in and out of the country. Do you feel that these kind of promotional activities is actually quite critical moving forward? Perhaps we can't wrap everything out this year, but this is a good step to continue with the momentum of growing Malaysian franchises domestically as well as internationally.
No, certainly. I think these trade fairs and all that are very important. I mean, if you look at Europe, it goes back 100 years. They're way ahead of us in terms of these trade fairs. Now, we have that support structure already existing outside through our embassies and various trade missions overseas. I think we are very well set up to promote brands and franchising. And I'm a firm believer in engaging with the associations, But what we need to do is not just, and we've done this in the past. It's not something new where we've said, promote Malaysia here, promote Malaysian brands, trade missions where we take like 200 leaders of business to certain countries. They sign certain MOUs. Nothing really, to be honest with you, sorry, but nothing really happens from all of this, unless you have certain plans, you have certain KPIs. So, for example, you want to start here, you want to start by recognizing maybe the top 10 trending brands in Malaysia, and then, give them some support and then say, all right, now we're going to give you some certain incentives to take you out. Now, I'm targeting these countries because we have the expertise and our data says you will do well in these countries. Now, what kind of support you need? So we need to take the first group through that process, I think, not just having trade shows. I mean, you can't just say, okay, hey, come and this is what we have. We need to catch the bull by its horn and really promote that. Now, one thing that we're not talking about really is technology here. We're not pumping in, we're not thinking about how to expand our brands using the existing technology. You can do things virtually now. You can reach everyone around the globe. So we need to put, so sometimes if you want to create a brand, you want to create a presence, you want to create reach, and nothing does that better than technology. Technology is also disruptive. So we need to get in our IR 4.0s. We need to get in the mechanism. We're pumping in billions into technology. Now, some part of this needs to connect with this process of expanding our brands overseas, expanding the digital presence as well. Payment gateways, tokenization. We need to move into a digital sphere as well. The future is not physical. The future is digital. We can't even, we don't even know whether where we're standing in terms of tokens, in terms of digital assets. Are we on it? Are we not on it? Is it clear? Is it not clear? Where we stand on all this. Look at the 5G rollout. We're still how many years on and nobody has a clue where we really are. So, you can't just, it's not just one dimensional. I think we need to sit down and we need to have a comprehensive plan moving forward. Support not just in the physical realm, but also in the digital realm. That's my 2 cents worth on it.